Welcome back, everyone. Hi, if you're new, my name is Tori, and today I'm going to take you all through all of the books that I read in the month of March. Overall, it was a pretty solid month. I didn't just absolutely love anything that I read, but I didn't hate anything either, so that's always a good sign. So yeah, I have a few things to share with you, so let's get into it. So the first thing I read was, don't get excited. The first thing I read was The Walking Dead Compendium, but I did not read this entire thing. This contains issues 1 through 48, and I actually only read the first part of it, which is Days Gone By. I'm not really sure how this is broken up with the chapters and the issues. I'm not sure like how many issues of the chapter or how many chapters is an issue or how many pages is an issue. I have no idea because there's 48 issues, but there are only about 8 chapters in here. So all the comic book or graphic novel fans watching this, just go with me here. Forgive me. Leave a comment down below about how this is kind of broken up, I guess. But yeah, I did end up reading chapter 1, which was a pretty chunky first part of the story, and it was good. It was really good. You guys probably know this already. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead on AMC. This is really my first experience with comic books. I mean, I've read a handful of graphic novels here and there, but nothing like this before where the fan base is like this massive and this dedicated, and yeah, something that's this long running. It follows, well, I guess I should say the show follows the first chapter of this pretty well, but there were just, I mean, this obviously stands on its own perfectly. There were just so many great things that I learned about Rick's backstory, which I didn't know, and I didn't miss Daryl that much like I thought I would, so that was really great. In that first chapter that I read, you know, Rick meets Glenn for the first time, and then they come upon that camp, and so yeah, it's just things started unfolding, and you really get to see the relationship between Rick and Shane heat up a lot more than it did in the TV show, which was cool. So yeah, overall, I did really enjoy the first chapter that I read, and I am looking forward to continuing on with this because it was really good. Let me just say though, Lori is just as annoying in the comic books as she is in the TV show, so I'm happy to report that for you guys. This next book that I read, oh my god, this took me forever to get through, and this was more of a, I think, a surprise read, because normally I'm posting my TBR videos, and then if you guys follow me on Instagram, I'm pretty frequently, not all the time, but pretty frequently updating on my stories about books that I'm reading and things that I'm enjoying or not enjoying. But this next book I purposefully kept off of YouTube and my stories just so people who follow me regularly would have, you know, a little surprise thrown in there. So that surprise was The Passage, and this is by Justin Cronin, and this is massive. This is almost too massive. The Passage is a post-apocalyptic novel, and it is really epic in every sense of the word. This is the first in a trilogy, and the other 2 books in this trilogy are just as thick as this one is. This book takes place in a world where the government is running experiments on inmates, and you know, when they're doing all of this, they find out that this virus essentially turns people into vampires. This is a vampire post-apocalyptic story, which I've never read before. I've read just regular apocalyptic stories, I've read zombie apocalyptic stories, but we got some vampires going on in this. So they're running all of these experiments in this secret base, and one of our main characters is Agent Wolgast, and he is tasked to go find this young girl named Amy. She's about 6 or 7 years old, and bring her in. She doesn't have a family anymore. Her mother abandoned her, and the government starts running these experiments on Amy, and things go about as well as you would think that they would go. Everything hits the fan, and Amy and Wolgast end up on their own. This is where things get really weird. I love the first part of this book. The first, maybe, like, I can actually pinpoint when things just kind of went south for me a little bit with this book. Hold on, give me a second. If you don't even want to hear like the smallest spoiler, I guess, concerning The Passage, I'm gonna put I actually never even do spoilers in my wrap-up videos, but I really don't know how to talk around this thing. So if you don't even want to hear just the slight spoiler, then I'm gonna put a timestamp that you can skip to on the screen, and you can just kind of skip ahead. But something happens, and there is a really jarring, in my opinion, time jump that happens in this book of almost 100 years. And it's like, once that jump happens, the characters that we came to care about in the first part of the book and the just everything that happened. It's almost like Justin Cronin was like, oh, that was nice. Shift. And we get not a completely different story, because it definitely still fits in the world and the things that are going on. But I mean, it just really takes a kind of dramatic shift. And then after that shift happens, we are now in this walled colony with all of these different characters. And Amy approaches this colony, and she has still been impacted by the virus that was injected into her all those years ago. That time jump really threw me off, and I found that I wasn't caring as much about a lot of the characters in, when that jump happened, as I was in the very beginning of the story with all of the, I guess, original characters that we were introduced to. But I mean, overall, this is such a strong character book, in my opinion, and just spending time with these characters was really great. And I love apocalyptic stories. Post-apocalyptic is one of my favorite subgenres, so being with this book for so long and these characters for so long was a really great reading experience. But I definitely think it was a little bit too long, and I don't think I really ever recovered from that time shift, so there's that. But I mean, overall, I actually am really glad that I read this, because I've always felt a little bit intimidated by this novel. This has been on my shelf for a really long time, but I just never felt like that was the right time for me to read it, so I'm glad I finally jumped into it. This next book is so weird. It is so strange, and that is Rosewater by Tade Thompson, and this is the first book in the Wormwood trilogy. I don't know why I thought it was called the Insurrection trilogy. Where did I get that from? I think that's the name of the second book. I have never been more confused and happy about it. Rosewater takes place in the sort of near future of 2066, and it takes place in this fictional town of Rosewater that is in Nigeria. And in Rosewater, sorry if I'm not looking at the camera, it's because I'm thinking very hard. In the center of the town is this biodome, and like once a year the biodome opens up, and it's said to have all of these mystical powers, and when it opens up, it can basically heal people that are in the vicinity. And so our main character in this is Caro, and he is what's known as a sensitive, and Caro can basically maneuver through the strange space of the biodome. It almost feels like you're just dropped headfirst into the story with just absolutely no idea of what's happening, what's going on, and you're really just kind of forced to go along with it. So I appreciate Tade Thompson's writing, because it made me intrigued enough to want to keep reading, so there's a plus for that. This book takes place in alternating timelines. So in one period we have 2066, and then it flashes back to like the 2040s, 2050s, and you're really starting to learn how Caro became involved in this government agency that he works for. You're learning a little bit more about the history of this biodome and how it came to be in Rosewater and how Rosewater was formed. And I mean, pieces are slowly being laid throughout the entire book of just everything that's going on, but it is really a journey. And also on top of that, it's kind of a mystery going on too, because other sensitives like Caro have been turning up dead. And so it's like, well, what's happening there? So, I mean, there's just a lot happening here, but I love the pacing of this story so much. I think more than anything, because I think with books like this, it's so easy to lose the reader because you're just like constantly world building and constantly info dumping. But I love Tade Thompson's writing style. I love the fact that he just has such a unique structure to this, and everything is just so perfectly layered. And I don't know, it was really good. It was really weird, really strange, but overall a really satisfying read when it was finally over. So I'm looking forward to continuing on with this. This is the first in a trilogy, and yeah, I recommend this. The next book I read was Sunburn, and this is by Lippman. I don't know why I read this. This has been on my shelf for about a year, and I was like, it's small, may as well get it out the way. This is weird also. This is like I don't know, I would kind of classify this almost as a mystery, a dark mystery, or a dark literary fiction. In this, we're following this main character named Polly, and actually two main characters, Polly and Adam. And Polly is escaping from, or not really escaping, it makes it sound like she's just like fleeing in the night. Well, it's kind of what she did. Polly is leaving behind her husband and her daughter, and she ends up in this really small town, and it's there at this small town restaurant in the town that she meets this man named Adam. And they're not planning on staying there very long. They're both kind of just passing through, but they end up having an affair, and from there, we're getting like pieces of Polly's backstory as well as Adam's, and basically how everything is intertwined. You should already know that your past does not stay hidden. No matter how far you run, it's gonna catch up to you. This book is told in a couple of alternating viewpoints. We get Polly and Adam, and we get Polly's husband, and her backstory is just a lot darker than this book itself is a lot darker than what I was originally expecting. What I really love about this is that the writing, first of all, is gorgeous. Oh my gosh, it's so gritty and so, it almost has like a staccato feel to it. It just, everything hits the way it's supposed to, and plot reveals, they land very naturally, and nothing is like purposefully shocking to surprise the reader or anything. I don't know, it flows very well. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But I don't know, overall, there's just a few things here and there that really didn't click with me about this novel. I don't think I would like actively go out and just be recommending this to people and say, hey, go read Sunburn. But I mean, overall, I'm glad I finally got it off my TBR. But you know, if you're looking for something a little gritty, a little dark, literary mystery, then I would recommend this. Or if you're a fan of Laura Lippman, I would recommend it. But yeah, overall, it was fine. So the last book that I read in March is, you already know what it is. I've been talking about this book forever, and that was House of Earth and Blood, and this is by Sarah J. Maas, and this is, like The Passage, also huge. This is the first Sarah J. Maas novel that I was able to finish, and I didn't hate it. This was actually, wow. I kind of enjoyed this. Let's get the cons out the way first. The characters, more specifically the male characters in this book, they have no personality. They are all written the same. They feel like cardboard cutouts of each other, just with different names and different powers. And that was just, it was annoying. All of her characters just feel the same. They all have the kind of the same, ouch. Her characters to me kind of have the same personalities throughout this book. It was, yeah, that's probably one of the biggest cons. The other one is the world building. This is a high fantasy, urban fantasy novel. I'm not sure what title you want to put on it, but there is a lot of world building, and a lot of it comes really early on in the book, to the point where, I mean, really within the first 60 plus pages, you are just getting slapped over the head with information that you don't care about at that moment, because you're like, who's this person? Like, what is their title? Why are you telling me this now? So, I mean, those were the two biggest issues. A lot of the character personalities and the way a lot of the characters were drawn, and the world building. I feel like I never felt 100% comfortable in this world until it was almost finished, and that's not really a great sign. In House of Earth and Blood, we are following this main character named Bryce Quinlan, and Bryce is half fae, half human. So this is not a spoiler, just bear with me here, it's not a spoiler. Bryce's best friend is brutally murdered along with some of her other friends, and that takes place within the first 75 pages. And it's those first 75 pages of buildup and almost just kind of boring. I really wanted to put this book down. I was like, this is not gonna be for me. The world building is too fast. Nothing is making sense. But when that scene happened, I mean, this takes a really emotional and kind of dark shift in tone for the rest of the book. And it's like, after that happens, the death of Bryce's best friend essentially becomes the emotional foundation for the rest of the novel. And I was not anticipating that. I did not like Bryce when this book started. I thought she was just really insufferable character. I rolled my eyes a lot in the first 60 pages. I was like, oh my God, this is a foolish character. But when that shift happens in the story, it really becomes, I don't know, it feels like something completely different, and you sympathize with her more. And the things that she is going through, Bryce is going through, it hurts a lot more. I had some really weird emotional reactions to this book. Let me just throw that out there. And, you know, after that happens, this book really becomes a mystery. This investigation has her paired up with this angel named Hunt, and they are working together throughout the story to basically put the pieces together. And I mean, this is a fantastical world where there's basically every type of creature. There's fays, and there's angels and witches and just wolves, and I mean, it's a lot packed into one story. And it's like all of these creatures are broken up into like their different houses and stuff. I mean, it's a pretty sizable, you know, type of world building going on here. Overall, this started out really iffy, but when, like I said, when that major story shift happens, I don't know, I became a lot softer to this character, and I became a little more invested in the things that she was going through and the mystery that she was trying to figure out. And I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it. I'm gonna tell you right now where things started to get really, I mean, it was already, you know, entertaining and fun up until this point, but when it hit page 600, you guys, page 600 to the end was nuts. I haven't felt so strongly about an ending in a very, very, very long time. I loved the last 200 pages of this book. It was great. I feel like this is about to be a very long series, and I just got suckered into it. Let's just call it what it is. I got suckered into it. I'm willing to bet you the next book is going to be called House of Flame and Shadow. I'm calling it right now. So that's it for me, you guys. That's all I have. Those are all the books that I read in the month of March. Like I said, overall, really solid month. And yeah, who would have thought I would enjoy a Sarah J. Maas novel? Let me know down in the comments how your month went. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.